Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. A planet with a very important resource. And a group of people come down to harvest that resource, and the natives don't like it. But then one of the people who came to harvest the resource turns out to be a good guy, and he joins the natives and fights back against the people trying to harvest the resource. Am I explaining the plot of Avatar, or am I explaining the plot of Doon? More particularly Doon 2, that's the movie we just came out of. Today is February 29th. It technically, I like that cinemas do this, it technically releases tomorrow, but the first showtimes are today.
Does it technically release tomorrow?
Yeah, if you were to look it up, it would say.
Oh, that would explain it, because
it happens to a lot of titles do this. When Burt Kreischer's movie came out, we saw it the day after. There was actually a showing the day before, which he paired with a stand-up show. Yeah. I think we talked about that before. Just in case I forget to say it later, welcome to the Forest Creek Podcast. I haven't said that in a little while. Excuse me if I'm rusty. I'm your host, Raph.
I'm Jared. I'm also rusty.
Yeah, we came out of Doon Too. There's a good reason why I haven't been doing the podcast, and I could talk about excuses. I could. But I'm tired of talking about excuses. I just want to talk about the movie. Let's do that.
Why didn't they call it Tune?
I've been thinking in my head, how am I going to title this podcast episode? Yeah. And my best guess was DOONTOO. Doon Too.
No, you got to do the number 2. UNE. Tune.
Oh my god. Tune. We'll see. Maybe I'll put it like a spotted Instagram voting thing, and only one person will vote, and it'll be your dad.
That's a great idea. Yeah. It could be chance.
It could be chance. The thing I was getting at with the opening of this is that there's a formula here. The formula is we want a metaphor for white people harvesting resources. Just like Avatar, we have a metaphor for people coming and humans abusing nature and coming and stealing resources and then violating the rights of natives and blah, 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 blah. So what we do is we skin it with a fantasy world so that we can pretend that the metaphor isn't, right up in your face.
Yeah.
And then the formula becomes about getting you as the audience to follow someone who starts in your perspective as someone who benefits from the resources that are harvested. We live in a first world. If we're going to a cinema, we live in a first world country. We're watching this in the movie theaters. We're people who benefit off the resources, right? So then we start from that perspective, and then we follow someone like us who came to harvest the resources as they go to see the other side of the story, which is the native side of the story, and then joins them, and like, it's so beat for beat. I know the tactics of the people coming to harvest resources. You know this world really well. Let's join forces and engage in guerrilla warfare to take down the people who are supposedly better at outgunning us. Mishmish keeps interrupting this podcast to harvest pets. To harvest pets. But you see where I'm getting at, right? With, it's very formulaic. So what does the name of the game become is how well we can be subtle about the metaphor and immerse you into the fantasy world. Avatar 2, which AD and I talked about when it came out, The Way of Water. Avatar 1 did a very good job with this, even though it was still kind of stupid. They did a bad job at getting the metaphor, and then they hit it with a Blue Planet documentary.
Is that what number 2 was?
It's basically a gigantic Discovery Channel documentary that takes place on an alien planet. Is it beautiful to look at? Yes, that's part of the immersion. But they failed to be subtle about it. In fact, they were kind of stupid because they went from unobtainium to we're harvesting the alien whales because they make us live longer or something. And there's twists on this, right? There's twists on the story. That's actually one of the reasons why the Black Panther story is good. Because Wakanda is a nation that benefited from its resource, vibranium, and became too powerful for anyone else to come into the country and harvest the vibranium. So there are ways to put twists on it. And I am a fan of what Doon 2 did, because it did a very good job at adding so much nuance into the story that it... Like, here's the thing. It takes something like A Chosen One, which is a motif. It's kind of a cliche sometimes, but they did this thing where their main character, Paul, is reluctant to be the chosen one. He doesn't want to be a messiah, at least in the beginning. Spoiler alert, we will be talking about the plot of this. And this is also the second movie. You didn't see the first movie.
No, I didn't, which was incidental. I'd been planning to see it and then totally forgot about it, and then you were like, we're watching Doon 2, and I was like, well, I better watch Doon 1 on the weekend.
Or at least like a recap video or something.
Well, I was going to actually watch the movie, and then the weekend
Yeah.
passed, I was like, better watch it tonight, and I totally forgot, and I did that for 4 days straight.
Yeah, you messaged me today that you were going to watch a recap video.
Yeah, I was
and-
planning on watching it in the car.
Oh my god.
Before, like parked outside the theater.
Yeah.
But there was like 5
Traffic
minutes
and-
left.
yeah.
So I was like, well, no time to look at a recap, whatever. So I'm
So-
gonna be the shoes for the audience members listening who haven't seen Dune 1
Which is great.
and haven't seen Dune 2, I guess.
Take us through the experience.
I can't go fully because you gave me the recap of Dune 1, which
A little bit, yeah. I kind of gave you the quick...
which was extremely useful. I think if you haven't seen Dune 1, you won't understand.
Let me do that recap now.
Well, here's the first thing. If you watch it, you'll slowly begin to understand who people are,
Yeah.
but I would recommend watching the first one because
You'll get it better.
for most of the movie I was like, man, I wish I'd watched the first one.
I watched the first one months ago. I saw it on Netflix.
Yeah.
I meant to go see it in theaters because it looked really good, but I also never got around to it. Dune is actually based off of a book series,
Yes.
and it's a really well built and really well written world, and it's very complicated and quite nuanced. It differs from the Star Wars world in the sense that in Star Wars there's room for somebody else to be a different kind of character. I mean that in the sense of the Star Wars universe is diverse and open worldy enough
Yeah.
that in your head you can go, I wonder what it would be like if I was a Jedi. What kind of choices would I make, and what
Yes,
kind of
yeah.
adventures would I have? In Dune, I don't want to be anywhere in this world. Being part of the houses sucks. Being part of the Fremen kind of sucks. Being one of the invading forces sucks. Being one of the many soldiers who get eaten by a sandworm sucks. There's no good place to
What about
be.
the Emperor?
Even Christopher Walken.
That
Who was a
took
good-
me by surprise.
It was a good casting choice.
It was.
got me. He's a great pick for it. Dune altogether, great casting choices. Mm-hmm. So the first movie,
Oh, this is the first movie I've seen with Timothy Chalamet, I think.
really,
Yeah. What else has he been in?
I don't
Maybe
know.
I'm
I've only
lying.
really seen him in Dune.
No.
I know
I first heard about him on Tim
Willy
Dillon.
Wonka. I know he's Willy Wonka. I'm sorry.
Oh, I
I'm
never
not-
watched that one.
I'm not gonna watch it. I'm
No,
sorry.
Johnny Depp is Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder. Is
Yeah, a lot
Willy
of people
Wonka.
would kill me for that one.
Yeah, that's we lost fans. We lost. Your dad just turned off the
Yeah, I've
podcast.
just been disowned.
So Dune, the basic story of it is it takes place in a sci-fi future
On
where
a desert
We have an
planet.
intergalactic empire.
Oh.
Is ruling the galaxy.
Yeah.
Right, and there are many noble houses that are ruled over by the emperor. Now, the way that they navigate their interstellar travel requires the use of a hallucinogenic drug called spice. And spice is mined from a planet called Arrakis, or at least that they call Arrakis. It's a giant sandy planet full of deserts and all that. There's a lot of intricacies about its ecosystem, like the whole culture there of the natives is about preserving moisture. Because obviously you need water to survive, and it's very limited on Dune.
That was
On the
so
planet.
funny because in the first scene, the mother is trying not to vomit.
Yeah, and
and
he's
the
like,
guy's
"Hold
like,
it in."
hold that in. Don't let
it
that
in.
out. Don't let it out. And then she
Because
vomits. Yeah.
To them, it's not just about the moisture anymore. It's so intertwined with their culture. It's sacred.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so when I saw that, I was trying to think, it's like, is this are worms also attracted to vomit or something, or is there something like this? And then later on, I think it was like, yeah, she cries, and he says, "Don't waste that." And literally wipes the tear from her eyes and licks his thumb. I was like, oh, it was about preserving the water.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of really cool little intricacies about the planet, and that's where the immersion factor that I'm talking about comes in.
The world building they have in this is amazing. The world building is
really good. The sandworms that are attracted, the giant monstrous sandworms that are attracted to rhythmic sounds on the surface of the desert. So you have, when you're walking, you have to walk in a way that breaks up your rhythm.
Sand walking.
Yeah, sand walk, literally.
Which I think it's like that sort of thing is a really cool aspect.
In the first movie, they actually have Timothée Chalamet's character, Paul. He's like watching documentary videos about how to survive on Arrakis, and that's in there. So like he references it in this movie. Another thing is spice. If you're exposed to it often enough, your eyes turn blue. There's lots of little things about that.
Was a nice thing that you mentioned to me, but all these little things, learning about the world from you like right before watching it, was really useful.
Yeah.
Because in like the first shot, basically, you see somebody with blue eyes, and I know immediately, oh, they've got spice.
Yes. So to kind of follow up on the plot here, basically, there's different houses, and the Emperor assigned a house called the Harkonnens to look over Arrakis and look over the mining operation there and take care of it. At a certain point, the Emperor decides, I'm favoring a different house, House Atreides. And Harkonnens, I'm telling you to leave the planet now, and Atreides are going to come and they're going to start taking over the mining operation. And spice is a very valuable thing, so this is very big for House Atreides, so we're definitely going to take it. The father of House Atreides, Leto Atreides, is played by Oscar Isaac. He really did well in the role. Again, the casting choices throughout this entire franchise are amazing. But then, as House Atreides is beginning their whole takeover operation, they are attacked and betrayed within their own house, and the Harkonnens come back and they bomb them and they launch an attack. They kill everybody and they take over again. And the difference was that the Harkonnens, God damn you, cat. One of the things that they make clear in the beginning is that the Harkonnens immediately chose violence. They're going to attack the natives. The Fremen. That's what the natives are called. I don't even remember the name of the natives from Avatar.
Oh, Navi.
The Navi. But again,
I just remember because
they do a similar thing to Avatar in that they invent a whole language and a culture and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The difference is that...
Blah, blah, all that crap.
It is crap. It is... like here.
They did it in Lord of the Rings, too.
It was a big deal when Avatar, the first one, came out. People were like, it's all CG? Wow. Meanwhile, kids who play video games are like, yeah, it's all CG. And then the second one comes out and it's like, wow, we've sat through so many Marvel movies that this doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's still very picturesque, but the Fremen are relatable in the beginning because they're human, but they also have a very unforgiving culture. Our first human-to-human encounter with them has immediately a duel to the death. When the House of Atreides is betrayed and overtaken by the Harkonnens, Paul Atreides, the son of the Duke, escapes with his mother. Paul is a chosen one because he was born to the father, being the Duke, but his mother wasn't actually a Duke's wife. His mother was what's called a Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit is like a cult of magic witches. They have all sorts of weird powers, including being able to like psychically command people. In the movie, whenever you see somebody speak in like kind of echoes, that's them doing that.
Yeah.
Right. They have all sorts of other things, but Paul kind of inherited some of these powers because he was born to a Bene Gesserit. This is kind of like a heresy to the Bene Gesserit because they're a matriarchal society. It's all witches, it's all women. And this is going to point to something we're going to talk about again, because this movie does a very interesting framing of masculine and feminine forces. But Paul is a chosen one, not just of the Bene Gesserit, because he's a guy who was born with these powers, not just because he's kind of like the prince of a house, not just because he's the guy who's supposed to literally inherit the planet and rule it, but also within the religion of the people, the Fremen, who are waiting for their Messiah to come and free them. Paul is also what's called the Lisan al-Ghali, which is funny to me because it sounds, maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it also kind of sounds like Arabic. And this whole movie is like references to me. It's like references to the Western countries coming and taking over the Middle East for the oil, right? There's actually a scene where the Baron of the Harkonnen, the big bad villain, he's bathing in a bathtub, and it's not water that he's bathing in. It looks like oil.
I was wondering what it was.
I don't know what exactly it is. He kind of like bathes in it to regenerate after he was like poisoned or something in the last movie, but it looks like oil, and I'm like, oh, I kind of get the metaphor here, you know? Big fat white dude bathing in oil. A little bit on the nose here. In the last movie, when Paul ran away with his mom, they managed to escape the Harkonnens, and they flee to the only people who can kind of offer them aid and protect them, which are the Fremen. And he's dreaming about this girl all the time, who is played by Zendaya, and then he actually meets her.
Oh, that's the one he's dreaming about, right? I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then he actually meets her when he meets the Fremen.
When he's dreaming about her in the first one, is it because he's on Spice?
It is triggered by Spice, but it's also like just his regular dreams. He does, being a Bene Gesserit gives him like psychic premonitions here and there. So I think that's pretty much catching everybody up on what the plot is here. So like I said, as per formula, the outsider has to become an insider and become ingratiated with the culture and the ways of the people he's fighting with in order to conduct guerrilla warfare to take... And now I'm getting bored. You can hear me getting bored. To conduct guerrilla warfare to fight off the people.
I think what makes it interesting is the characters, for one thing, obviously. They're more interesting.
They have a lot more color to them.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because the other characters in Avatar are literally blue.
Yeah. But I also really just like the desert setting and the world they've built.
Yeah.
It's far more interesting.
Which is fascinating. Because if you watch Avatar, there should be a lot more interesting about this.
Well, one thing I think that makes Avatar, I guess that the Fremen have over the Na'vi in terms of interest, is that the Fremen are not like integrated into the world as the Na'vi are. The Na'vi are essentially animals.
Because actually,
it's like there's no fighting against nature with them.
If you trace back where the Fremen came from, they were humans who just came with other humans and landed on this planet.
It's like, we can see that. It's like they're all human.
Yeah, just centuries later, obviously they build and kind of adapt their own culture.
Yeah, but it's like, this is humans here on this place that have learned to survive.
Yes.
It's like, it's more interesting,
but they don't have,
this is just part of nature.
The Na'vi literally have braids that connect them to the nature around them.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's like imagine Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Like it advertised before, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, it's like Planet of the Apes is less interesting, assuming the apes are the natives. It's like, because they're entwined with nature, there's no fighting against nature, they're part of nature. That's what the Na'vi are. It's like they're part of nature. There's no battling to survive, fighting against things. It takes them about 10 minutes and they're suddenly flying on big birds.
Because if anything, I mean, like in Planet of the apes are apes.
Yeah.
They're, if anything, more natural than the humans in the
Exactly, 100%.
And the Na'vi are quite literally a part of their planet.
Yeah, but it's like if the Fremen walk normally, they die.
They have like a very fascinating culture because it's a culture of survival and it's very harsh and unforgiving. Yeah. And they developed it for a reason. It allows them to live in some form of harmony, but it's not like a naturally, natural born harmony. They had to develop this.
Yeah.
And not just develop it, but adhere to it with a religious ferocity, which is something that comes out in the movie. Now, one of the nuances I like about it is that they're not all the same.
No, yeah, that was... Yeah. It was kind of funny that it's when like you got the north and the south.
All the Na'vi cry.
Yeah.
When you talk poorly about the Messiah, half of the Fremen are like, we don't stand with you on that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me. Which is like some of them abandon the magic of the world a little bit. Or like they're not interested in it. It's not real to them. They have no reason to really hold on to that belief, whereas other ones do. And it's very funny, the whole Lisan al-Ghalib thing. And as it is written.
Yeah.
It is written. So walk us through your... like I said, we said I explained it to you a little bit, so you had a chance to know these details. And
even without that, what this movie gets right is that it's a very good movie on its own. As a piece of cinema, yeah, it's like this, I can tell what's going on without knowing what's going on. It's like when there's things thumping in the sand and everybody runs away and then the big guys in armor and guns come in. I know these are the people we're with.
Yeah.
Those are the enemies and we've set up a trap for them. I don't know what that trap is. I don't know what's going to happen. Then he runs away and says worm. It's okay. So something big is coming and there's a giant worm coming.
Yeah.
Or whatever they call a worm, something big is coming, and it's because of these things thumping in the sand. It's like I can slowly gather this world building information. It's really well done.
Yes.
It's amazing. And honestly, even throughout the whole thing, you told me there was a Baron and an Emperor. I didn't know if Christopher Walken was the Baron or if the Baron's son was the Baron.
When I first saw Christopher Walken, I was like, Jared's going to think that's the Baron.
I thought it was the Baron.
I know.
And then I was like, well, who's this woman talking then? Because I don't know who she is. And I had no reference for it. But it's like slowly as I watched the movie, I was like, oh, I understand all the relations now.
Yes.
It's like just watching it.
I watched the first movie months ago. As I was explaining it to you, I didn't remember most of the names. I'm pretty sure I called the planet something else by accident.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But they explain.
But they do such a good job of the show don't tell. They don't
and
dump
I think
exposition on you.
That's the big thing. It's like they do it through interesting dialogue between characters talking about things.
Yes.
They're not, and then showing you stuff.
No narration.
Yeah.
No narration.
It's so good. There's no somebody saying, man, this really sucks. I wish that fat bald man, the Baron, would not be doing the thing he's doing, and then show the fat bald man, the Baron, doing the thing he's doing. I'm like, that's bad
We're
narration.
not hearing the Diary of Jake Sully aloud the whole way through, which is really annoying.
Was that in Avatar 2?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It was in Avatar 1. Actually, one of the things that annoys me so much, a sin on both of these movies is that they're both really long. Doon 2 is 3 hours.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I didn't feel like that. Doon 2 didn't feel like 3 hours to me. It felt shorter because it was so interesting.
We would differ on this.
One thing I actually didn't like about Doon 2 was the pacing of the first half.
Yeah.
It was so insanely fast. Maybe the first third, but it's like it was super fast, and they were doing a bunch of time skipping that wasn't very obvious. It took me halfway through the second time skip to realize they were showing you by the level of pregnancy of the mother. And I was like, time has passed.
Yes.
Because he's literally like, if I get the skeptical people on my side, I can get an army and get revenge. And then literally the next scene, he's got number one skeptic wrapped around his finger. I'm like, okay, what? Come on. Romance is good in movies. It can be.
I actually thought they did a pretty good job with that.
I thought so.
As movie romances go,
yeah,
I was pretty happy with it.
After I realized they were time skipped, I was satisfied. But before that, I was like, dude, it literally took you 2 days. You hated him right away, and you were like, he's not the Messiah. There's no such thing. And then 2 days later, you're in bed with him. Like, that's crazy. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, it's actually been like 4 months.
It's funny because they do this thing where they're like, you have to take this journey across the desert, but we'll show you like 2 scenes of that and then go right back
that kind of just disappeared, and I didn't like it.
And then we'll just jump right into
like,
guerrilla warfare.
Where's that going on? Here's one thing in the world that they cannot explain away, and they never explain.
Yeah.
And they just hand wave. How do you get like 200 people on the back of one of these giant worms? How did they get his mother on that freaking worm?
I don't think his
mother...
In
her giant carriage.
I don't think she...
She was.
Was she?
That's how they went to the south. They showed a big close-up of her in a tent with her giant hat on this worm going to the south. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Because they show him getting onto the worm.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you get off the worm?
That's the other thing. It's like, where's the dismount and where's the mounting of 500 people at the same time?
Which would be really cool to watch. I thought the worm mounting scene was pretty cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so sick.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff that's very, again...
But I'm also like, how did you see him?
This movie is very visually stunning.
Yeah.
Which is the same deal with Avatar 2. Mm-hmm. The problem with Avatar 2 is that they made 10 hours and then decided to cut it down to 4 or 3.5. And the problem with that is that we have a very beautiful scene. If you just lingered on this shot for just a second more, we could really appreciate the beauty. Nope, we got to cut to the next thing because we have way too much stuff to get through.
Yeah.
Same kind of deal with Doon Too. I don't think it was as egregious, and we got to get a lot of the beauty out of it.
Yeah, there was...
If anything, we could do with maybe a little bit less walking around on sand. That was a lot of that. We have a lot of that. Especially in the first movie, we have a lot of shots of people walking through the desert wordlessly between machines, and it's like, we don't need this much of that in a 3-hour movie. We got the runtime a little bit. With this, as with Avatar, my thoughts are, you could do this as a Netflix series, and we could take our time with things and enjoy them, but the problem is we have a gigantic, very expensive cast. We have a lot of very expensive filmmaking, and we have to get our money back on this by showing it in a theater. Yeah. Right?
That is one thing. It's like, what, in terms of thinking, it's like, how should you present, what format should you choose to present your story? Movie or TV show?
Yeah.
Because now, with things like Game of Thrones setting such a precedent, you can have an hour-and-a-half episode.
Yes.
That's rare, but it's 40 minutes to an hour. By season like 4 or 5, every episode was at least an hour.
Dune, a movie like that, is designed to be played in the theater, though, right? Because we
That's the
have
other thing.
visually stunning things.
It's incredible.
There's a scene where we were watching a spaceship blow up cave system, and just hearing the bass thump and the rockets flying.
You were freaking shaking in your seat, man.
I loved it.
Wild.
I was thrilled by that scene because I was like, I feel like I'm watching the rockets go up. It's kind of like the bomb moment in Oppenheimer. Some things are meant to be shown in theaters.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, again, we went to Landmark for this. Comfortable seats. The Dolby sound system that they have is fantastic. We watched it in something called Laser, which I think they just named it because it sounds cool, but I have no idea.
Laser?
Apparently. It's supposed to be visually a little bit better.
See, in IMAX, they used to do a laser show. That was fun. They'd bounce a bunch of lasers off mirrors.
This is a little bit fun for the intro.
And they'd be like, this screen is the size of 5 houses. Stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, it's like,
how big is your house? It doesn't look that big.
Wow, really? But like we said, very visually stunning. And you'd think that you would get bored of looking at desert landscapes.
Yeah, you didn't.
No.
Like I said, it's like it didn't feel like 3 hours.
It's a fun contrast to Avatar 2, because Avatar 2 is colorful and ocean and look at these fish and green jungles and mountains and blah blah blah, and it's like, it's boring. You're just making me watch a gigantic Blue Planet documentary that takes place on an alien planet, and it's annoying. We didn't have to spend 3 hours learning about this fish that doesn't affect the plot at all. Dune doesn't spend too much time being like, look at all these people with blue eyes. No, it just puts them in there.
It's 50-50 in that it's like, the thing it suffers from in the first bit is pacing.
Yes.
And like, I thought him crossing the desert was going to take... I thought that was going to be a journey.
I'm kind of glad it wasn't.
Instead, it was not even a montage. It was 2 scenes.
Yeah. we might differ on this, because I'm like, I know that's gonna just go, because that's one of the formulaic boring parts to me, is you have to undertake the test, but obviously you're the protagonist and the chosen one in like 3 separate cultures, so of course you're gonna survive this test, and we don't really want to watch you walk across the desert.
It's 50-50. It's not a massive negative. It took me like until I was seeing the next scene and he's climbing something, and I was like, oh, it's done. He passed it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I moved on. But it's like, I don't want it to be, I have to realize that we've moved on to the next scene. Like, why did you do it that way? That's the thing that messed with me. It's like, that's where it's like, if it broke the immersion, because it left me thinking, where are we? What's going on? For at least 2 shots.
What it would have been like if you did watch the first movie first, and then you would have become a little bit maybe more acquainted with the world.
Do they have a similar thing with pacing in it, where it's like really fast and really slow,
if anything,
or really
it's
slow and really
incredibly
fast?
slow the whole way through.
Weird
to me. So we might differ on that, but
well, no, it's I don't mind if you want to introduce a scene that's like, our protagonist is going to go do something, and then you skip it off screen because it's obvious. Like, whatever, do that. Just don't break the immersion. Because what happened to me during the theater that I assume is going to happen to a lot of people, is I see him going here in the desert. I see her joining him and whatnot. And then suddenly it's brighter out and there's different people doing different things. And then he's climbing a mountain. And I'm like, what is happening? Are we seeing something else? Is it a new day? Is it a new scene? Why is he here? How much time has passed? That was the other thing. It's like, I never knew how much time has passed until I realized, I was like, oh, they showed us the mother twice with like a tiny little baby bump. And maybe I'm just an idiot, but my indicator was not, oh, it's been a month and a half. I'm very well acquainted with with how women change during pregnancy.
Exactly what trimester she's in.
I'm like, I don't freaking know, dude.
One second. I want to shout out the cast of this. We have to talk about the cast a little bit because the casting of the Doon movies is really good. Mm-hmm. Everybody in my mind has knocked the performance out of the park. There wasn't one single one that was unbelievable. Yeah. Okay, Timothée Chalamet, obviously our lead. He plays Paul Atreides. Zendaya. Mm-hmm. Also known as the Spider-Man girlfriend, is in this movie. Because she's the girlfriend to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. She's their MJ.
Oh, I never watched those movies.
Yeah, they're not. The third one is good. The first one is okay. The second one is not good.
Andres despises all of them.
I know, but you know how he is.
Which is the funniest thing.
Zendaya, I will say, actually, my first time seeing her before she was in Spider-Man, she was a Disney Channel actress.
Oh, really?
And she played this show where she was like a kid spy who was going to high school and trying to live a normal life, but also being a spy. And even in that role, it was very evident to me that she could play someone who could be bearing a lot of pain but still be determined. Which was a little bit reflective of her MJ role. Of somebody who, I have a lot of pain, I'm jaded, I have trust issues or whatever, but also I'm determined and gotta be cool. And again, the same thing is true in this role when she's playing Chani. So that turned out very well. Austin Butler was playing one of our villains.
Her name was Chani.
Yeah, Chani. That's what it's spelled like
I didn't get that until the end of the movie. 90% of the way I thought she was called Johnny.
Every time they said Paul's name, Mahdi or something like that, I didn't understand it at all.
Mahdi?
Oh,
it was like, shoot. Now
I don't
ruined
even
it for me.
know what the word is.
Widam Wadimi.
Wadi. They say it both ways.
Well, they add a Muadim
what
or
What
something.
I really hate is when they did subtitles and just showed the subtitles in their language. They didn't even put the subtitles in English.
When did they do that?
Every time Lisan al-Khali came out.
It's a name.
There's other like sayings when they would like say something and then they'd show subtitles. In case you didn't hear this guy say this thing in this other language, we're going to show you what it spelled like in the other language. And they would show like the word Mahdi, like M-A-D-H-I or something like that.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, is that the word?
I don't know. Maybe I've just watched a lot of subtitled things. I'm used to that sort of thing. It didn't bump with me. Florence
Pugh was the one who played the Princess Irulan.
No.
Irulan, who was the Emperor's daughter.
Yeah.
One of the Bene Gesserit. She looks a little bit to me like a younger, hotter Scarlett Johansson, to be honest. But her performance was really good. That was one of the ones that really struck me. Rebecca Ferguson playing Lady Jessica. Christopher Walken played the Emperor.
Is Lady Jessica the mom?
I think so.
Who's that? She had an incredible performance.
Jason Momoa was in the previous one. He was playing like Timothée Chalamet's bodyguard, and he was like one of the most renowned fighters. He has a really cool fight scene in the first movie. He dies, unfortunately.
Spoilers.
Stellan Skarsgård is the guy who plays the Baron.
What a name.
He's,
He plays the Baron?
Yeah, he's the guy who plays the Baron.
That's wild.
Batista's in this movie. Batista is an underrated actor.
Oh, okay. Is this the same guy that played Drax?
Yeah.
Okay, because as soon as I saw him, I was like, Drax is in this.
Yeah, and he's really good at like the really angry.
Oh my gosh, he was so incredible.
It was one of the cliches that I was not a fan of the bad guys always kill their own people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All the time, and they do that constantly with the Harkonnens. It's kind of stupid. It's kind of stupid how often they do. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna slit your throat to test how sharp this knife is because I'm a psychopath. I was like, I know you're a psychopath. They just said you're a psychopath in the previous scene. I don't need this stupid demonstration.
I think what.
Or like Batista does it, who's like, "Oh, I'm mad at your failure. How dare you tell me to
And,
rest?"
like,
And he slams
him in
her.
the face.
You're like, I get it. This is Batista being Batista and doing his thing. Like,
I think the weirdest bit of lore is that Fade Rahib or whatever his name is, he has girls in his quarter that he feeds other
they're
girls
cannibals.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck?
It doesn't.
Like, this is their whole purpose.
It's like, yeah, I get it. It's
They
part of
chill
your,
here and they eat people.
your whole psychopath thing. Got it, bro. Thanks.
Like, where is that in the budget? Like, what is this? What is the what's the title?
I'll point out two other ones. Josh Brolin, who is playing Gurney. He's the,
okay, yeah.
So he was part of House Atreides, and then he somehow got away when they were destroyed and became a smuggler.
Yeah.
Who was mining spice and selling it on the low. And then he runs into Paul again and joins the fight. Josh Brolin, also known for his roles as Cable in Deadpool.
Oh.
And he's the guy who plays Thanos.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Because he popped off his mask and I was like, Thanos?
He's
Jeff
great.
Bridges?
He's great. When he came on and like, because he was supposedly dead, when I heard him like singing and playing that like weird guitar and thing, I was like, this is cool.
Oh, that's
this
awesome.
is cool. He had a really cool entrance.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
And last but certainly not least, I think I'm going to take a guess and say this is probably your favorite character
Timothy
too.
Chalamet. No.
Stilgar.
Oh, Stilgar.
Javier Bardem plays Stilgar.
As written.
As it is written. People started laughing in the theater at certain points because of that. I think there was a part of it that it was supposed to be funny when Paul comes out and he's like, I don't want to be the Messiah. I'm not the Messiah. This is just a thing. And then the next scene is literally
that was
Stilgar talking to
amazing.
everybody, being like, he's humble. It's as it's written.
Yeah.
He's pretending not
He's
to be
too
the
humble
Messiah.
to
And
say he's
that's
the
how we
Messiah.
know he is.
Yeah.
Which he was right, but
That
also...
was so good.
People
What
were
a great
laughing in the
line.
theater. It was a really funny moment, you know? Yeah, they did that pretty well. All in all, I'm like happy about this movie. I think it's just like in the beginning I was like skeptical about the movie because of the parts that are formulaic. Because I'm walking into it going, Avatar 2. Because that's on my mind and I'm like, I'm not into Hollywood doing this again. Can't I be in an alien world with an alien problem? You know? It's kind of like it's one of the things that's so attractive about Star Wars, because the Force is an alien problem.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
completely imaginary,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, if anything, it's a more subtle metaphor for a lot of things. It's the thing that makes the One Ring and Lord of the Rings so attractive. It's a fantastic metaphor, but they have no way to beat you over the head with it,
Yeah.
right?
Because it's a ring.
Avatar 2 beats you over the head from the beginning. The white man is here to...
What? Wow.
And it's almost kind of offensive how close...
To you?
Like, I'm looking at the Na'vi being like, just use First Nations people. Just use Aboriginals. Just use Indigenous people. Just say Indigenous.
Yeah.
Like, just do that. I get it. You don't have to beat me over the head with, we are the natives here and we are more connected to nature. It's like, bro, come on. Do you have to really... Do I need the Hollywood liberal elite to beat me over the head with this? I get it. You called it unobtainium, you moron. I'm not going to say that spice is that much more creative.
No.
I think it is. It is a little bit. Like, saying spice is lame.
What I thought was
But-
funny was the way they were able to use it, because they spike his food with it.
Yeah.
And they go, a little bit too spicy for you?
Yeah,
Like,
which is funny.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
that was clever.
Oh, that word does work.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's one question I have. Are all of the Fremen high all the time? They all have blue eyes all the time, constantly.
Not all of them. That's funny. It's interesting you mentioned that. Not all the Fremen have blue eyes.
Oh, I guess Stilgar didn't. No, he did. Didn't he?
No.
Okay.
A number of people in it, like a
Because
number of the
Chani did,
Fremen
and
didn't,
like
but
90% of the random people around him did.
I wouldn't say 90%. I would say it was actually like, it's almost 60-40. Like 40% of them had it.
So why? Like, what's up with that?
It's just, if you happened to be overexposed to it, you would get blue eyes.
Here's a question. where is spice mined? Like, what is overexposed? How do they get it?
So
how common is
you'll
it?
see them when they're walking in the desert. They have that thing that's like attached to their noses. Right?
Oh,
it's
yes,
like a tube
yes.
that comes out. That's because they need that to breathe clean oxygen
Okay.
because it's in the sand.
Oh.
And it's like very fine and can get in the air, and then you'll
Okay.
inhale it like that.
Yes, I was wondering about that. I was
Yeah.
like, maybe it's like just moist air.
Yeah, they show it to you. It's like it sparkles, the spice.
Yeah, they kind of demonstrated that for like a shot, and I was like, wait, so it's on the surface of the sand, and then that makes the mining equipment make more sense because they're not actually like digging down and mining.
Yeah.
They're just stabbing stuff.
It's interesting, the mining equipment, there's parts of it that almost don't seem to make sense when you're looking at it from an engineering standpoint. Like they have, it's got tank treads, so it's moving, but then
Yeah.
it also has these legs that just thump on the ground randomly.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's to throw off the rhythm so that the sandworms don't come.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
it is interesting how
Yeah.
the world kind of works together like that. Another
Here's-
thing I find really interesting, and it's like an excuse to do cool martial combat, is the shield thing.
The what?
The shields on their armor. Because they do explain it in the first movie. They're like, the shields on armor are designed to repel high velocity attacks.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So you need low velocity attacks, which is why we use blades instead of guns.
Yeah.
Which they still use guns. Like,
Yeah. That's a question I had in terms of world building with the Fremen. Where are their production factories that they make these giant guns? They have big laser guns that they destroy this mining things with. Where did they get
I don't
those?
know. I don't know.
I was
mean-
hoping they would explain it in the first movie. Where do they make the thumpy things they put in the sand?
I was joking about this with Avatar 2, but if we really wanted to model a little bit of what goes on in the real world, we would go down to the Na'vi on their planet, and we wouldn't attack or destroy or do any of that stupid stuff. We'd just go to one tribe of the Na'vi and be like, the other tribe's talking crap about you. Do you guys want some guns? And then we would then go to the other tribe and be like, you guys need our help.
They're coming for
Let
you.
us set up some military bases here. We don't know where they got these guns, but let us set up some military bases here and harvest some
with
of your
the exact
resources.
same guns.
ISIS drives like freaking Toyotas, bro. Do you get the
They
picture?
went down to the dealership.
Oh, where did the Taliban come from? Well, in the 1980s, we were fighting Soviet Russia, so we gave the Mujahideen a bunch of guns. And then one of the Mujahideen turned into Osama bin Laden. So it's like, if you really want to, like, if we want to dig into this, if I was trying to get back at the Harkonnens, I would show up and be like, hey, Fremen people, I don't really care what you guys do with all of these weapons and armaments, but why don't you, help yourself and cause some trouble for the people I don't like. Right?
Yeah, I just thought it was hilarious that it's like the native people here, they live in caves, and it's like it's all primitive stuff. They're running around everywhere. But they somehow have mechanical devices. Like, okay, so they've got some sort of production means somewhere, and they're getting metal somewhere.
They kind of explain it.
They shoot a giant freaking cannon laser from the side of a mountain, and it rips through one of these mining things and destroys it in one hit.
Yeah.
Like, where did you get that? What is powering that thing?
We circle back to this. They're humans. They're humans with engineering capabilities, and they have
I don't know,
a lot
man.
of habitation in the south, apparently.
Did they
and
explain any of this in the first movie?
I don't think they really have to.
Because if you even show us
honest.
a shot of some guy emerging from a factory,
Here's something you didn't
Done.
question. They all have high-tech suits that can recycle moisture off of their bodies.
I didn't know that. It actually wasn't until much later that I understood they're not like just liquefying people.
Yeah.
They're absorbing the moisture from their bodies.
Yeah.
I thought they were like turning their bodies fully and into liquid, and then it just came
my
out
God,
water.
that's-
And I was
that is
like,
pretty
that would
funny.
be a lot more red.
Yeah, but they have all kinds of instruments
So it
and
took
tools
me
and stuff.
probably literally until the end of the movie.
In the first movie, they have someone who's like a doctor. It's like, well, you clearly had to have the resources and knowledge to
Yeah.
be able to study medicine to a.
I don't know,
rate
man.
that you
Just
could-
show me one shot of a room or a guy that makes this stuff.
I get it. But
Just
also,
what?
this
You
movie's
got an
3 hours.
inventor?
Don't show me that shit at all.
Put an inventor. Maybe Chinese smart. Give her some goggles and a lab coat.
That's funny.
Who is this doctor character?
I think that might have been a bit too much. On the other side of this, I'm gonna give you some pushback and be this movie's already 3 hours.
I don't care how long it is.
I do.
If they take out all the bits where people are walking on the sand and explain to me where you got a giant laser cannon that destroys mining equipment.
We bought it from the Taliban. Okay.
It works. There's smugglers out there. Maybe they smuggle you guns.
Yeah, like clearly the world is a little bit bigger.
But clearly
than
they don't.
see.
They can't tell the difference between smugglers and the real guys.
If you think about it this way, we only saw 2 houses.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch more.
Yeah.
Right. Like just like we said, it's like the other houses are not honoring your ascendancy. Well, they're waiting right now in orbit.
Yeah, right now by the end of the movie because they finally heard about stuff.
Well, you know,
it's like the Baron gave them that notice.
Clearly there's a lot of stores of resources. I mean, like,
no, it's not clear.
One of
they didn't show the only resource they showed us. They had
you right now. They literally open a thing and they're like, "Here's all these atomic weapons that belong to your house."
Okay, so here's the 2 stores we have that they didn't know existed and could not access.
They're all wearing high-tech moisture harvesting suits. They have pump technology. They build thumpers themselves. And they're like, I tuned this myself.
Did he say that?
Yeah, literally. Stilgar's handing him the thumper and he's like, I tuned this myself.
Who made it?
Stilgar.
No, he tuned it.
I don't know.
What does that mean?
Who cares?
Like a guitar? I care.
I don't question
Where'd you get that freaking piece of metal?
I don't care. I don't care.
Why do they all look the same? That means there's a factory.
It's like, here's the thing, because even if you did show, they have a big laser that can rip through the thing, got it. The other guy still had a gigantic spaceship and like loads of soldiers and stuff, so it's like clearly there is a differential between resources here. Because they're still fighting guerrilla warfare versus these guys coming in with their full military force and might. So it's like, that's enough for me.
No, here's the thing. It works. It works and it doesn't break immersion, but it's just like, where'd you get that? What's going on there?
We made it in the lab. Do you really need to see where we make fucking iPhones?
I would like to.
It would be,
show me the money.
I think it's like there is a way to dig a little bit too much into the economy of these things.
Yeah, it's the fun part.
And not always. Not always Avatar 2. Not always.
Maybe I'm
need
coming
to see all these things.
I'm also coming from the stance of reading books. I've been reading a book series for the past 6 months.
Right.
And it's very in-depth and very delightful.
Which is what kind of surprised me when you said you didn't know anything about Dune, because I was like, knowing your taste in books, I was like, you'd probably really like Dune.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
I heard about it a ton from Matt Colville, who is a YouTuber who talks
totally
about
mentioned it.
Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of other fantasy tales and stuff. And he referenced Dune a lot in his videos, so it was like, it's clearly something that's like pretty well known in some sci-fi lover circles.
Yeah. I mean, there was even the guy in the row in front of us that said that was pretty close to the movie to the books at the end.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I eavesdrop on everybody around me all the time.
Not well. But yeah, I mean, overall, what do you like? If we think, I actually want to get your perspective on this. What is the coloring like from your perspective?
Oh, dude, it was so freaking good. Oh my gosh, it was delightful. Everything matched. There was not one shot that bumped with me. I'm guarantee if you actually analyze it, I'm sure there's some lighting mismatches or like, oh, he's a slight shade orange different than here and there, but it works enough.
Right before that, we saw another trailer for another movie that takes place in a desert-ish kind of environment, and was the Furiosa movie.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm seeing shots of the Furiosa movie, like, the colors are really cool, but I'm looking at shots and being like, that's a green screen.
Oh, really?
There were a couple shots of in the trailer where I'm like, that is a green screen.
Interesting.
It kind of breaks my immersion a little bit. I had no issues visually with this entire movie. I actually thought one part that I want to point out that's cool is they show the Harkonnen world in this arena, and if you notice, everything there is black and white.
But here's the thing that I love so much about that: it's not true desaturated, fully black and white.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's in a way that it's like things that are color are still color. It's like the enemies come out, and they're still skin color. They're just very desaturated. They're not black and white. They're not pale.
I was wondering in my head, is this kind of like a commentary about when we go over into a foreign country to harvest their resources and start a war, we need to frame things as black and white. Quite literally.
That could be, yeah.
Because we're literally watching our warrior hero, or at least from their perspective, their warrior hero, the prince, the Na-Baron, who's supposed to inherit the planet, and he's killing the supposed last of that house, and we're framing it in it's black and white.
Yeah.
There's no
gray.
no gray, and there's no disinterest in the morality here.
There's also no hair.
Which is an interesting thing. It's like it kind of makes them all look a little bit homogenous when you look at the girls in this thing.
Point.
Music in the thing.
It was one of those. I never really
you?
pay attention to music in movies. It's one of those ones where it was so good I didn't notice it.
Yeah, so it was the kiss scene between Paul and Chani, their first one.
Oh yeah.
And you can kind of hear the orchestra building a little bit, and then it like goes into full roar when they finally do the first kiss, because it's kind of like it's the fulfillment of Paul's personal prophecy.
Yeah.
Overall, it's not like that super impactful, but it was good enough that it didn't distract. It just enhanced the scenes. It didn't steal the show. I think a lot of the time you can steal the show in a way that's kind of cool. Inception does a really good job of that.
Oh yeah.
With like the roaring thing, and Inception does a really smart motif where, by contrast, Hans Zimmer, what he did was, because every level of the dream is slowing, the whole reason it goes boom boom is actually because we're slowing down an orchestral piece to match the timing of like that's the dream that we're in, right? Another great example of this is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh.
Their choice of music is Claire de Lune, and they play it at certain parts. Like
I remember you mentioning this.
Yeah. There, in this movie, it doesn't steal the show. It's not. It's not Across the Spider-Verse, with that kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it does it. I think the real star of the show here is the visuals.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And the performances of the actors complementing that visuals. It's a really well put together movie, I would say. It's not one of those things that I would walk away from being like, that has no right being that popular. Like,
no, not. It's
there's
like it's
nothing
amazing.
Controversial about this being a good movie.
Yeah.
Like you can be controversial about the Barbie movie, for instance, which is certainly a lot more forward in the we're going to beat you over the head with the thing we're talking about. Yeah, this movie is a lot, cooler about it. What do you think about the fight scenes?
I actually thought that was really good because they were essentially what I would call a fight scene here is like close combat.
Yeah.
And they were relatively few and far between. There wasn't a whole ton of close combat.
There was actually a lot of politics in this.
Yeah.
And it's like
which I actually really
executed
like.
politics.
Yeah.
Right? It
because
wasn't
it's not
the Phantom
Star Wars.
Menace.
Yeah.
It's not the Phantom Menace where we're talking about trade federations
oh my
that
gosh,
don't
and you
apply
gotta
to us.
read like a 5-page document to understand what's going on, and you don't want to because I just want to watch a freaking movie.
Yeah. No, I think they did the politics.
No, the politics was amazing. I understood everything, and it was interesting to watch.
Very nuanced.
Yeah.
It's very Game of Thronesy.
Yeah,
You're watching these people
really
do their
is.
political maneuvering.
Oh man, okay, the
We have
funniest.
to make sure the Bene Gesserit survives to the blah 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 blah. It's like
When I freaking burst out laughing and literally covered my mouth because I was in a theater.
I remember that. I was yeah.
It was so funny because they just talk about Fade and desires, how they can control him, and then they cut to the ceremony, and the Baron, part of the ceremony is kissing his son on the lips. And as he pulls away, Fade grabs the back of his dad's head and pulls him in.
It's his uncle.
Kiss. His uncle.
Because again, it's a moment
Oh,
of.
freaking killed me, man! It was so funny.
Did you know that actually leaders in the Soviet Union used to kiss each other on the lips?
Really?
Yeah. If you go to Berlin, on the Berlin Wall, there's a mural of two Soviet leaders kissing each other on the mouth.
Wow, I've been there and I've seen the wall, but I didn't see that.
Wow, there you go. You weren't paying attention. The political parts to it, I thought were actually really well done.
Yeah.
Is one of the moments that really stuck out to me is they're showing Batista, his character, is standing in front of the armies, and he's getting a medal, and you can see on his face is this means so much to me. So it was the performances really, really complement the political scenes.
Yeah.
And just they imply importance with, again, they do a wonderful job with show don't tell.
Yeah.
There's a scene where in the first movie where the Harkonnens are preparing to go and attack the Atreides, and they're all like kneeling, and their priestesses are coming and like putting one little ink smudge on their foreheads, like anointing them, you're ready for battle. And it's like, it really sells to you the importance of these guys are ready to die.
Yeah.
They're ready to go for it. The political maneuvering in this movie is fantastic. And then the action scenes, not just necessarily the combat, the action of we're watching something blow up, we're watching characters run, is pretty good, pretty well executed.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
like,
amazing.
Even the
I
scene,
really enjoyed it.
like where
I would highly recommend watching the first one first. Because halfway through I was like, man, I wish I watched the first one.
they're both really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where Paul is running up and like trying to reload for Chani, and you know, the kind of RPG.
Oh yeah,
missions.
yeah.
It's a really cool scene.
It's a great scene.
know?
I love when he's like, "You stay here and keep aiming. I'm gonna run to that other thing for cover."
To draw.
And he's running over, and halfway through it starts moving. He's like, "Crap!"
He's like, yeah, because they have to turn off the shield in order to fire.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's
that
actually kind of
was
like a cool mechanism
So
to this.
freaking funny though. That is like, I'm gonna run to the other side for cover, and then his cover moves, and he's like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
Yeah, it's really funny. Well, then when we get down to it, it's like in the previous movie there was like one big fight scene. There's a lot of smaller knife combat things.
Yeah.
But there's one in the previous movie where Jason Momoa is like fighting off 10 Harkonnens, and he's in a sword fight with them.
Yeah.
In this one, we get another knife duel with Paul, and it's the Harkonnen Nabarin.
It was so
Prince.
good, man.
This is a really good
That
fight.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Although, spoilers, after he gets stabbed twice, like pulls out the other one. I'm like, you're bleeding a lot for a guy who's kind of about to
Shut up,
stand
he's a
up to the
chosen
Emperor.
one. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna stand for this.
I was like,
I
somebody
have
gonna
no
like
right to
bandage
complain
him?
because I love John Wick. And John Wick gets battered, stabbed, shot, thrown out of buildings.
Here's the thing. He's had a lot more training and experience than
Than Paul.
Timothy Chalamet. It's like they preface John Wick that he is that guy.
Yeah, that's true.
They never preface Paul with that. At least not in the second movie.
Paul, like, I really liked the way Timothy Chalamet's performance takes that turn with Paul, where towards the end, when he accepts being
Yeah.
like, and like, I can see all the futures, none of this is important, and he like defies their culture and their tradition, and still stands up to be like, you need me, you're
Which is the
afraid
exact
that I
opposite.
might be the one.
Yeah, because earlier he was all about accepting the tradition and doing whatever they wanted him to do.
Yeah.
And now he's like, screw that.
You would deprive me of the best of you? I'm not going to shatter my best knife before
Oh, that
I
was
begin.
so
It was, like,
good, man.
Really
It's
good.
like, do you break a knife before a battle?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you moron.
It's a really, really cool scene. Yeah. All in all,
That's one thing. I think that is the number one reason I would have watched the first one first is his character development. Because I
Yeah.
realized only in the real first dialogue scenes of this movie that I was like, oh, I have no clue who this guy is.
yeah.
I know nothing about him. And so once I started watching him, I was like, who exactly is he? He's kind of planning things, and he's planning out maneuvers. He's like, okay, they see me as a messiah, but only like half of them or less. He's like, if I can get the non-believers, then I can gather an army, and then I can go over here. And like, throughout the movie, so it's like at the very beginning, he's planning all this. I'm like, okay, he's kind of a scumbag guy. And it's like he's going to manipulate all these people and send them to their deaths and start a war. It's like that's as now knowing, it's like, oh, he's the son of a dude. He's going to
And
rule
then
over
he
this whole
starts getting
planet.
the
It's like,
visions
he's that
of like
guy.
what the atomic weapons are going to
Exactly.
do, and the whole
But that
war.
was the thing where I'm like, the one moment that I think is the most important moment in the movie for him is when he's sitting there on his own and he takes off his father's ring, puts it in his pocket. That's where he
Yeah.
decided. He was like, okay, I'm no longer the guy. I'm no longer scheming. He's like, this is real and I believe it, and I'm here, I'm all in.
Yeah.
It's like, that's when he became one of them.
Well, then he has this transition. Where he puts
Exactly,
it
where
back
it's like
on.
he puts it back on, which is like, dang, why is he doing that? And that's what makes me think. It's like watching that and remembering his one line from the very beginning where he says, if I can get them on my side, then I can go. He explains what he's going to do in the whole
Yeah,
movie.
he kind
and
of
then he
like-
does it all.
Yes.
And I'm like, did he ever not believe, or is it one of those situations
like, where it seemed he strayed? He's like, I'm just happy doing my guerrilla warfare.
That's
and
where I'm wondering. I think what it
good.
actually is that it's less so that he like took off the ring and said, I'm not with that anymore, I'm with these people. I think it was like an in-between where he didn't want to choose. And it's like he's still his father's son, the Duke-to-be of this planet, and he's going to rule it all, and he wants to get his revenge, but he also wants to be part of these people and just have a happy, quiet life.
I'm going to reference something from history here. The idea of your, guy from the Western world going into some Eastern culture and becoming embedded and becoming part of that culture and fighting with the leaders there. The real-life version of that is Lawrence of Arabia. T.E. Lawrence.
That is a movie. No.
I mean, it is a movie. But it was a real guy.
Yeah.
He was a British officer during the First World War who went to go fight against the Turkish and Ottoman Empire. And he met with the Mujahideen, and the Bedouin tribes there before they were the Mujahideen. And he learned their culture and then helped them with his own military tactics, and together they fought back against the Ottoman Empire. Maybe I have that wrong because I don't really know my history
Something like that
much, but it was something like that. And when you see pictures of Lawrence of Arabia, he was just an English guy, but you would see him in the Bedouin gown and headdress and all that stuff. There's a romanticism behind that Jake Sully kind of, I'm gonna adopt their culture and become one and then help them and get in the romantic guerrilla warfare kind of deal. Paul gets into that, and I think he starts off with, I'm the Duke's son and I have a mission.
Yeah.
And then we watch him become romanced by that lifestyle of, I'm one of the Fremen. I have a Fremen girlfriend. I'm helping them fight their battle. I don't want to take this destiny. But then we watch him come back around, and by the end of the movie, now it's, I'm the Emperor.
Yeah. Oh my
right?
gosh, dude.
Which makes me excited for the third movie, because now we're leaving the planet.
I think
We're going into the space. We're actually moving beyond that plot of, here's the blah, 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 the romantic kind of
well, I think what's most interesting
nonsense
about his character is that he clearly still has that, because right before he does the whole Emperor thing, he walks up to her and says, as long as I breathe, I will love you.
Yeah, it's like,
so it's like
doesn't
it's
leave
still
his,
there.
It doesn't leave his heart,
Yeah.
but he knows that he does have to accept this destiny.
Yeah.
It is at one point, it's like something she kind of agrees with, too. It's like, the world chose for us.
When does she agree?
Well, it's
I
the
think
scene where they're arguing about whether or not Paul will travel south.
Oh, yeah.
And she comes in and she says, the world chose for us. And it seems like she's trying to comfort him because they do have to go south, but she didn't expect him to go all the way into it.
Yeah. I think it was more, she was still on that romantic side of it.
Yeah.
It's like, don't leave me, come with me. Don't stay here.
But then ultimately she loses him because of that decision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the third movie. I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. To see this guy who's now embraced that he's the chosen one, and now he has to self-actualize that. Because the rest of the houses are not having it. And I can kind of agree with that. It's like, what am I going to take this freaking usurper and just put him on the emperor? I'm not going to swear my fealty to a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can almost imagine being the leader of one of these houses and be like, we have a Bene Gesserit? Get that lady out of here. I don't want to deal with that. What do you mean she can speak words and make us do
That
stuff?
was the other thing. It's like,
You're
witch.
exiles. It's like, witch.
Burn the witch.
But you notice, like, they're in the Emperor's house, they're in the Harkonnen's house, they're in the Atreides' house. The Bene Gesserit are the ones in charge.
That was the most interesting thing on that side, was the Reverend Mother being not only a Fremen desert thing, but it's an emperor thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's a Reverend Mother in the Fremen culture and next to the emperor.
There is like a consort with all of them.
I'm
And
like,
they're
what?
like all trying to have daughters, and all of them trying to carry on their thing and influence the men and kind of puppeteer them. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is the masculine and feminine forces.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
When I mentioned the scene of the Harkonnens and they're getting like the thing painted on their foreheads, that's a really big illustration of that. Because we're watching the masculine forces, the army, the soldiers, they got their swords and their armor ready and they're sitting and they're disciplined, but they can't go to battle until they are anointed by a priestess. You know, they can't take that leap. There's always a woman pulling the string somewhere in this world. It's not like it is supposed to be putting a matriarchal kind of society in your fantasy world is supposed to be a subversive thing, but I really like the way that it's framed here, because it's like there's still men in charge of this world, but they can't do things without, like, there's a feminine force behind all of them. And the feminine forces pull their hearts one way or the other. It's interesting when the Emperor is like, the reason why I killed your father is because he believed in the rules of the heart.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, because the Emperor thinks that he is ruling from the mind, but he's doing whatever the Bene Gesserit woman says, and he's doing whatever his daughter says. And they're the ones who are really in charge of this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I thought your father was weak from my perspective. They're seeing all of it as a measure of force and strength. When you watch the Harkonnens try to fight, they're bearing down as much force as possible. Right? But in the end, it's Chani and the guerrilla fighting kind of Fremen who are not being confrontational that are, you know, winning. Yeah. Right? The Bene Gesserit are not confrontational. They're subversive. They go in and they, like, get into your mind and play with that. That kind of scene where she's like, yeah, he's a psychopath, but what does that matter? What matters is whether or not we can control him. Yeah. Right? And then the later scene where they're describing him, they're just giving a full emotional breakdown. Yeah. Of, like, here's what all the things are, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the way that they view control, right? They're like, can we control him, as in, can we just stand around and tell him what to do? Yeah. Right? Not versus, can I bear my military might against you? So the masculine force and feminine forces in this movie, I think they're very interestingly framed, and I don't see a lot of movies doing such a great job of that. The Matrix Resurrections is one example that comes to mind, because the whole point of that new Matrix movie... Was that the fourth one? Yeah. The whole point of that new Matrix movie is that the one is actually the two. The duality between Neo and Trinity. I honestly don't remember it at all. It wasn't a great movie. But the point being is that it was supposed to be this duality between masculine and feminine force, but they didn't lean on that very well, and they didn't apply it to the movie very well. Yeah. Doon does a really good job of that, by contrast. I think that's everything I had about it. Yeah. Is there anything that comes to mind for you? You excited about the third movie? Oh, yeah. I want to watch the first one. I feel like they could have taken Dune 1 and 2 and turned them into 3 movies instead of 2 because of the length of them. Yeah, it probably would have helped the pacing of the first part of the second movie. Yeah. And now I'm curious how long Dune 3 is going to be. I'm wondering how the pacing will be. I hope this podcast is shorter than those movies. I hope it takes me less time to edit. It will definitely take you less time to edit. Well, hopefully it comes out soon. I'm hoping I can get it out quickly so people can listen to this and decide whether they would like to go, and I recommend they go. Yeah. What would you give this movie out of 10? Oh, I don't know. It's hard. Oh, go with an 8. Why not? Yeah, I'm like an 8, maybe an 8.5. It was more enjoyable than most movies I've seen. I'm happy with the nuance in this movie. Yeah. I would say. Yeah. It's visually stunning. The performances are fantastic. Yeah. I don't really have any serious complaints about it, aside from its, like, you wouldn't complain about its runtime, I would. Which, you know. The only thing I didn't like in terms of time was pacing. Yeah. And the random time skips that were poorly executed, from my opinion. Runtime, pacing. Yeah. That's what doesn't make it a 10. But aside from that, they made politics interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Great job. Which is something that's very hard to do. It hit where I'm at right now, because the book series I'm reading does politics, religion, war, and it throws in magic as well. What's the title of the one you're reading? Is it literally color magic? No, so the series is called the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. I'm on the 5th book, called The Burning White. Interesting. For those who want to and should read, the first book is called The Black Prison. Well, keep an eye out for more of our movie reviews and more of the stuff that we hope to be putting out with this podcast and with our other projects. You can find us online at The Forest Creek on Instagram and other social media platforms, and on YouTube, youtube.com/@TheRealForestCreek. Hit us up on Spotify. That's our favorite place to be. Follow us there and check out more episodes of this podcast. Like I said, more will be coming soon. Hopefully we get more of a chance to do those. And while you're at it, check out the people we're helping out, St. George's Coptic Orthodox Church at St. George YVR on Instagram and other social media platforms, youtube.com/st.georgeyvr. Until next time, we hope you enjoyed our review of Yellow Planet.
Wadib. That's the word.
Wadib. What did I say as we were coming out?
Waggy or
Avatar
something.
2, but yellow.
Oh, yeah, Avatar 2, but yellow.
But much
was
better.
so
Also
good.
a much better movie. Okay. Well, goodbye.
See ya.
Lisan al-Khalib.
As written. As it is written. They ended the podcast as it is written.
As it is written, Lisan al-Khalib.